YouTube, what's going on? Welcome back. All right, so I recently did a green light best top 10 castings, and I really should have titled that top 10 toolings. I'm going to do my top 5 for Auto World. I'm not going to do top 10 for Auto World because that would be 75% of their catalog. That's obviously a joke, but I'm not going to do top 10. I'll do top 5. I'll do a couple of honorable mentions here. And I'll start with this beautiful little gem here. 1966 Ford GT40. I believe this to be the nicest in the scale. I'm not sure if Kyosho did the 66 or not. But if they did, I would hold out reservation on making that comment. But definitely a great little casting. It's one of the very few Auto World castings that features transparent lens headlights. The only others that do is the Camaro, the Challenger, which is a true LE tooling that has been destroyed, and the Corvette. Don't believe there are any others that have the lens headlights. But I really love what Auto World does. They're very accurate. They are the best brand as far as domestic brands go for authenticity and scale and proportions. Because, for me, scale is important. I don't care if it's true to scale. If it's a little bit off, I'm okay with it. If the detail's good, which is why I have a lot of Johnny Lightning stuff. But the two most important things for me when I critique a die-cast car in 1 to 64 scale, the top two things that will ruin it more than anything else is the proportions of the car, which is why you see a lot of Hot Wheels that look extraordinarily silly because they'll have staggered wheels or cartoonized body lines and stuff like that. So proportions, and the most detrimental flaw that a diecast company can make is getting the stance wrong. To me, there's nothing that will ruin the look of a diecast car more than the stance. And that's why I'm not a big fan of Johnny Lightning, because they are absolutely the worst premium detail company at getting the stance right. Even Hot Wheels does a better job getting the stance of the cars right. So to me, the stance is probably the single most important aspect of replicating a car this size. And you can see here, this car, the stance is brilliant. It could probably stand to be a little bit lower to the ground. But being 1 to 64 scale, I think that this is totally doable. I think it's acceptable. And I think it looks fantastic. And with these cars we're going to look at right now, you're not going to see any stance issues. It's the Kyosho of American brands, except they do not do late model cars in their premium lineup, with 2 or 3 exceptions. Another honorable mention is this Ford Country Squire wagon. Didn't make my cut for the top 5, but it sits just outside of the top 5. These things are beautiful. I love them. They're so well designed, very well executed, and generally speaking, they are very well replicated. That is just a fantastic looking station wagon. Got the third row seat. Just a massive beast of a car. Tons of detail, and unlike M2, where you get the plastic chrome bumpers and the plastic headlight and taillight inserts, you just get so much plastic on those cars that just falls off. You don't get any of that with this, other than the luggage rack. That and the wheels and the interior and the engine are the only plastic on these castings. Everything else is die cast. So the body, the base, the bumpers. The bumpers are actually part of the mold, and that's where I think you really get the quality from Auto World, is the fact that the bumpers are part of the mold. I think there are a couple of castings maybe where that is not the case, but is the case on this. So everything on this body is painted. All the details you see are painted. And like, to me, it's better quality than what M2 provides, also Greenlight, by painting the detail than the quality you get with those brands by trying to replicate the detail by adding chrome pieces and doing that kind of stuff. I think this gives you a better look, and it certainly gives you a better quality. So those are my two honorable mentions. Check out these wheels. These hubcaps are phenomenal. Absolutely love them. Something else to note with these Auto World cars, they are much better at making white circles than Greenlight. Greenlight is awful at white wall tires. So, all right, number 5 is really a tie. There's two cars that are tied for number 5. So in no particular order, I will start with this. This is the Chevrolet Kingswood Estate Wagon. This is the lead sled deco, so this obviously is not a civilian model, but it looks equally good, I think, in a civilian deco with the wood paneling and the luggage rack. But in this case, we have a souped up race car, which also looks amazing. Got all of the sponsor badges there. Some aftermarket custom wheels. And I believe this is based off of an actual car. Also came out in black. I have that one as well. I probably do prefer the black one to this one. The black one doesn't have all of the crazy racing graphics. It does have the sponsor badges, but that's where the similarities end. Tremendous detail there on the engine. Nice roller. So that's my number 5 car. Tied for number 5. So the other half of number 5, there was a point in time where this was my number 1 Auto World casting. And that is the 1973 Also 74 Plymouth Roadrunner. I love this casting. I'm really waiting for them to release this with the torque thrust wheels. I think it would look killer with those wheels. It's a great casting. I mean, the execution on this thing it's really just second to none. And they've done some pretty cool colorways of this. It's only been out in what do we got? 2, 4, 6 colors, not counting the ultra reds. So this is a car that has not been released very many times. I think it would be sick to see this car in the Richard Petty deco, although I don't know how accurate that would be. But I do love this car. I love the body style of this car. If I was ever to restore an American muscle car, it would probably be one of these. It would for sure be Mopar, but I would definitely, I really do think it would be a 73 or 74 Roadrunner. I'd probably do a 73 because when did that EPA regulation take place? I think it was 73 or 74. So I'd want to do, if it was 73, then it wouldn't matter. It would be irrelevant. But if that regulation took effect in 74, then it would make sense to do a 73. Cars really changed for the worst after that regulation went into effect. But yeah, very, very nice looking car. So those are my two number 5s. So with that said, we're now going to go to number 3. And this car has borderline been my favorite Auto World tooling. It's only when I get my top 3 out and look at them all together that I really decide which ones are my actual favorite. Because if I'm not looking at them, you know, you might hear me say that this is my favorite Auto World tooling. This Mach 1 Mustang it's just unbelievable how awesome it is and how much detail they crammed into it. Let's take a look. We'll start with front quarter angle. Look at that stance. I mean, that is perfect. There's nothing about that that could be better as far as the stance goes. And the proportions. And the wheel placement. Obviously, lens headlights would be an upgrade. But that's perfection right there as far as I'm concerned. You're not going to find nicer. And I don't have the Kyosho, but I can't imagine the Kyosho looking better than this. As much as I love that brand, this thing is just so nice. Opening hood here. Tons of awesome engine detail. Got the raised white lettering on the tires. Firestone. It's funny, Greenlight does those tires also. Okay, so that's the front quarter angle. Let's take a look at the silhouette. As I said in a previous video, most premium detailed cars look good from this angle because it hides stance issues and it just hides a lot of potential flaws. But that looks killer. And then the most telling angle, the front quarter angle is critical, but the most critical angle when analyzing a 1 to 64 scale car is the rear quarter angle. This is where your flaws will be exposed. And as you can see here, I don't see a single flaw with that car. I mean, there's nothing about the stance that looks off. The ride height is perfect. The stance is perfect. The width of the tires in relativity to the car is perfect. And you very seldom see that in 1 to 64 scale. This is almost as close to a perfect replica that you can get in this scale. It's just that good. I mean, I would venture to say that this might be the most accurate domestic brand replica in all of 1 to 64 scale. You can take all Greenlight cars, all M2, all Auto World. This is probably the closest thing to accurate as I've seen. So that's my number 3, but this one could very easily be my number 1. And with number 2 and number 1 that we are about to look at, we're going to analyze them from the front quarter and rear quarter. So we'll be able to gauge how accurate those are in comparison to this Mach 1. So with that being said, my number 2 favorite Auto World casting, or tooling I should say, is this Cadillac Eldorado. A beautiful casting. These big land yacht castings are, I just love collecting them, and I just think they're great cars when they're done well. So front quarter angle, a lot like the Mustang. I think it's pretty much spot on. The stance looks great. The wheel placement inside the wheel well looks great. It's not in too far. It's not out too far. The ride height looks really good. If anything, it's probably a little low, which is okay. The proportions of the car look to be pretty perfect. Sorry for the shaky camera there. I mean, from this angle, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. The silhouette angle here, I would give this another 10 out of 10. That is just a beautiful car. I love the color. I love the lines. All right, now the most critical angle, the rear quarter angle, and even this angle looks perfect to me. So I give this car a full 10 out of 10. And this is another casting that could be my number 1. Really, it's like the top 5 toolings that Auto World has. 3 of them could easily be number 1 for me. So there's the Cadillac Eldorado, and obviously you all know what's coming. The Cadillac Coupe de Ville. This is my favorite Auto World tooling. I don't even think, I love the Eldorado and the Mustang, but how can you not choose this? This is perfection. So let's get to it. Front quarter angle. Ride height looks a little high. I'm wondering if maybe that's a build flaw. I don't think it is. maybe that is standard ride height. The Eldorado certainly looked lower to the ground. I would give this angle a 9 out of 10. It looks really good, but I wouldn't call that perfect. The silhouette is definitely a 10. 10 out of 10. That is just gorgeous. And the rear quarter angle, I'm pretty sure is a 10 out of 10 on this car. Maybe it's just the rear wheel being covered like that, I think throws me off a little bit. It almost makes it look like the car has a rake to it, when clearly it does not. So, I don't think I would score this a 10 out of 10, but I would definitely give it a 9 out of 10. This is my favorite Auto World tooling. Not my favorite color for this tooling, but I just love the authenticity of it. I mean, this is a factory color for this car. And, we really didn't talk about front quarter, rear quarter on the Roadrunner. Definitely a very high score on this front quarter. The rear quarter, pretty much the same thing. I would give that a very high score. At least a 9 on both of those. And with the Kingswood, this one's hard to tell. It'd be easier to use the civilian model to give it its scores. I think the graphics kind of throw me off a little bit. With this, I don't know, because I've never really seen one of these in person to know how accurate it is. But the Ford GT, I don't think I would score a 10. I don't even know if I would score this a 9, because I thought the stance on the car was a lot different. I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought that it was a lower stance. I thought the wheels were more tucked underneath the fender, but I don't know. I would have to double check. All right, so with all of that said, those are my top 5 toolings. Here is my favorite car. It's my least favorite tooling that Auto World has done, but it's my favorite car they've ever made in 1:64 scale. And that is the Dirty Christine. Not to be confused with the regular Christine, because that car wouldn't make my top 20 favorite Auto World cars. But this is my single most favorite. I mean, that looks as close to real as you're going to get. And I've never seen any of these brands do a better weathering job than what you see on this car here. That looks so killer. So that wraps up my Auto World video. I'm sure these came as no surprise to you guys. I mean, I've talked about it at least 100 times on the channel. The Cadillacs. It's all about the Cadillacs with Auto World. Everything that they do is quality, though, except for their selection. They're as good as it gets in designing the vehicles and making them. They're as bad as it gets when it comes to deciding which tooling are we going to make next. What's the one that would be the least desirable? Let's make that one. And that's pretty much where they're at. Now, what I do like about it is, I think it's like an unintended byproduct of their selection process, is that they always choose something that no one else has done. But there's a reason that no one else has done it, and it's because they're just not desirable cars. But an enthusiast of oddball diecast, that kind of does appeal to me. But I mean, if you look at Auto World's tooling catalog, there's not a lot of crossover. You know, the Christine crosses over, the Mach 1 crosses over. That's there. You know, I think there's a Challenger that crosses over. There's not a lot of crossover though. The Coupe doesn't. The Cyclones don't. There's just not much crossover, so that does play to their advantage. With the due to, you know, it helps them out when you factor in that they don't have a wide selection to choose from. But anyways, beautiful diecast cars. I would definitely recommend anybody that collects 1 to 64. If you don't have any of these in your collection, you should definitely add some, because they're not that expensive. They can be hard to find, but in 15 years, 20 years of everything that's out right now, these are going to be the most valuable. These will be worth way more than M2. They're going to be worth more than Greenlight. You know, they're definitely going to be worth collecting and having. So that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick to it. And that's going to wrap up the video. Thanks for watching. I might be back for one more tonight.